Hey, everybody. Glad you're back for Playful Podcast. Jen Risher is our guest today. Stick around for a great conversation. Jen is someone who is not afraid to talk about money so that money will move and move differently than it does to create more equity, more fairness, and a better world. So take a listen. Know you'll love it. Bye.
You're listening to the Playful Podcast with Christine Mitchie. Let's jump right in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Playful Podcast. And today's guest, I am so happy to introduce you to her. If you don't know her yet, is Jen Risher. She is someone I've met, I guess, only electronically at this point, but soon in person. That's our plan. And she is a philanthropist, a change maker, and I'd love her to tell you a little bit about herself as we get started. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me in for a conversation. You said just introduce myself, and it's how do I start? So I guess I could say I am someone who talks about money because we need to talk about it. And when we talk about it, then we can kind of use it with purpose. So I'm an author. I've written a book about wealth and also a person who wants to change our systems and create more equity, gender, racial, economic equity with my money. So using my money with impact, understanding the power of it, and trying to create the world I want to live in.
Woo! If you hadn't rehearsed that, like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. Thank you. I don't know if I would have gotten all those words in that order in describing you, but that's what about you attracted me to you. So thank you so much for sharing that with everyone. I start each episode with a question, and if you've had a chance to listen, you'll have heard this, and those in the audience will have gotten to hear this from other change makers regarding play. Who is the most playful person you know?
Oh my goodness. I looked at your 8 different models of play, and I was thinking about play and what it means. And I would initially say, my husband, because he is goofy and he's playful in a way that I think we think of playful, which is fun and goofy and let's do this. And he's kind of what I'm not, but that balances us out really well.
Yeah. Well, it does seem that in so many ways, couples and families usually have this, if you've got 2 kids, you kind of usually have one of one, one of another. If you've got 4 of you have 2 and 2 or 3 and 1. In so many characteristics. And I think play is an example of that. Do you have an example of a time where his playfulness was contagious and you got in the spirit, or does that happen all the time?
It happens all the time. And he would say, oh yeah, I have to drag them along, me and my daughters. He's like, let's go on the roller coaster. Let's do this. And we're like, no. And then finally we're like, okay. And then it's, of course, super fun. So he encouraged us to get out of our comfort zone and try new things and get playful. I mean, he's the one that puts on the fake nose and those glasses, or he does those kinds of, but what I consider kind of goofy. But it's fun to, when I think of playful, it's like laughter, and I love laughing.
Well, one of the things I know about your family is that you and David, your husband, have actually worked together at different times in your career at the same company. You've worked together with each other in building something yourselves. I think I recall at least one of your daughters is also involved in some of the work you're currently doing, and probably all your family involved. Tell me about how playful or fun it is to work with family members.
It has been awesome. And I didn't know that before we started, because when my husband and I came up with this idea and we realized, okay, we're going to do this thing together, I was a little skeptical. How is it going to be really seriously working with as a couple? Was that going to work out? We can't ride a bicycle together. What's that called? Not a unicycle, but the other one.
Yeah.
And we can't cook together, and we can't, we have tried hanging wallpaper together. There's certain things that we really shouldn't do together. And so I was a little worried that this might be one of them, but actually it's been amazing. We've learned from each other. We've collaborated and come up with, it's been really fun. And then our daughters have both gotten involved. So yeah, that's very fun.
Okay, so now I know what you're talking about. So let me have you let in the rest of the audience about this I think you're talking about your most recent thing, HalfMyDAF, which is something that you founded together. I'm gonna give a quick little primer on a DAF. So DAF is an acronym. Many of the listeners will know what that is, but for those who don't, it's a donor advised fund, which is a charitable mechanism where a donor can, and then Jen, please correct me or any things I get wrong or need to add. In a donor advised fund, you can make a contribution to a DAF holder, which could be Fidelity or Vanguard, so these Schwab, these big entities. Community foundations also will hold donor advised funds for folks. You make your donation there. As the donor, you get the tax write-off then, and then the dollars sit there to be deployed for charitable purposes. They're restricted to that. But as Jen will share with you, there aren't a lot of kind of regulations or requirements beyond that about what happens next with the money. So in the field, and many of the audience members I'm sure are familiar with this, it has been a source of, conversation at best, maybe controversy, et cetera, about, well, what's all that money just doing there if the donor already got the tax deduction, but no charity has yet benefited? And so HalfMyDAF is a part of the answer to that question. And if that's a good setup, please take it from there or add in what I might have missed.
That's a perfect setup. Absolutely. And DAFs are kind of having a heyday. Everyone wants to open a DAF and have a DAF, and they're growing, and the number sitting in DAFs is growing. And they are really, they're a tool, and they're a mechanism that makes it easier to give. So the spirit of a DAF is a good one. But let me back up. So David and I were sheltering in place during COVID. We were sitting in our backyard, and this was in March or April of 2020. So it was like, wow, the world was like kind of collapsing, and there was so much need, so much uncertainty. And my husband was running a nonprofit, so he could feel the funding kind of drying up. And nonprofits were working harder than ever. There was more need than ever, right? And yet they couldn't hold their luncheon. They couldn't fundraise. They just, and so it was a really difficult time. And so we were thinking, our hearts were really just going out to nonprofits. We had already kind of started to give to places we were already giving, but we wanted to do more. And we were just talking about what do we do? How can we do more? What's our role here? And we came up with this idea of, well, we wanted to give to nonprofits, but we're also aware of the money that was sitting in donor advised funds. And at the time, it was an amazingly large amount of money that we had a hard time wrapping our heads around. It was $120 billion. And that is, so that's 5 times NASA's yearly budget sitting, charitable dollars sitting in donor advised funds. So we were very aware of that. We were aware of the need on the other side. And while we could just start giving to nonprofits, we thought, how can we get more giving to nonprofits? So we came up with the idea of inspiring others. So we put up $1 million, and we said, here's money that will be used as matches for anyone who commits to spending down half of the money that's in their DAF right now. And we had this idea, so we called it HalfMyDAF, and we started to talk to people, and we built a website, and we contacted different press contacts that we had, and we launched with Giving Tuesday, which was in May of 2020. And we said, here we are, all you DAF holders out there, commit to spending down half your DAF and you can get matches. We'll match wherever you want to give. We didn't really step in between the giver and where they wanted to give. As long as you don't promote hate speech or gun violence, give wherever you want and you'll be eligible for a match. And so we started that in May. And by September, we had moved $8.6 million out of DAFs to nonprofits.
Wow. Paint that picture. I can imagine you and David sitting there just picturing this. It's hard to picture $120 billion, but to the degree you can picture it, behind kind of like a wall, but not a wall that can't be scaled or a hole can't be punched in, like that sense that it doesn't have to stay stuck back there. Let's shout over the wall to those dollars and say, hey, dollars, people with those dollars, let's move that money. And so you inspired folks to do that. What do you think was your most successful communication mechanism that got the word out?
Well, we were surprised by all the press that we got. It was kind of amazing. We were in Bloomberg, Washington Post, Chronicle of Philanthropy. Like, it wasn't normal for a quote donor or someone to kind of come up with this and moving money in this way, and to have, to make it really limit free, like give wherever you want. Just we stepped out of the pictures. There wasn't really a lot of ego involved. It was really just to inspire. So the press we got, I think, was really incredible. And then just hearing from people, it was amazing. I mean, people were like, "Oh, this is the nudge I needed," or "I'm sitting around the dinner table with my adult kids and we're talking about our values. We're talking about where we want to give." It was really starting conversations, and it was raising awareness of that money sitting. So it was really it was super exciting. And we had kind of started it, in response to COVID, but then we started to hear people say, "Well, when you do this next year," and we really hadn't planned on this being a continued thing, but it was so powerful that we thought we have to do this again. And so for 2021, we again put up $1 million, and our daughters for Christmas gave us the most amazing gift ever. They surprised us and said, "We want to put money into HalfMyDAF, our own money." And this is when we started to kind of have buckets of money for specific causes. So this is where we showed up with our values, because our older daughter said, "I want my money to go to racial justice." And our younger daughter said, "I want mine to go to climate and environment." And then we also had incredible partners who joined us as well. And they started to say, "Well, education in underserved communities and reproductive health are things we care about." And so people can show up, put their money into this bucket, and they know that that money will go towards a specific cause area, but the money will also inspire giving. And so the following year, we had even more money to give in matches, and we're now in year 4. And we just gave away our first match. We match in the middle of the kind of challenge, and then at the end of September. And this year we had, from March till now, basically, people gave $7 million through HalfMyDAF, which is just amazing. So exciting. And so we've moved over $41 million out of DAFs. At the same time, I have to say, the challenge is bigger, because you know how much money is now sitting in donor advised funds? It's going in the wrong direction. There's now officially $234 billion.
Whoa. Okay. So what is that? So I guess that tells us that the best lens on that would be, people are being more charitable. They're setting aside more money for charity, but it's the setting aside part that we're trying to loosen up, right?
It's definitely individuals who have kind of discovered a DAF and kind of understand how it's like opening a charitable checking account. You put your money in, and then so it is a nice vehicle. So that's that. But I also think it's being used by foundations. Foundations are putting money, maybe looking at it with a positive view. It's like they're putting money in there kind of temporarily and then moving it out. But there's a lot of problems with DAFs, because policy change, we are kind of starting kind of this grassroots movement, but policy change really does need to happen. There is a Accelerate Charitable Efforts Act that was put in front of Congress that really said there has to be a payout requirement. After 10 years, you have to pay the money out, and to change the 5% to 7% for foundations. And one of the things recently that actually Biden talked about is that the money, when a foundation gives from a foundation into a DAF, they really shouldn't be able to count that towards the 5% they're supposed to give away, but currently they can. So it's a lot of charitable dollars getting shifted around and actually not getting put to work.
Right. And again, if I don't know, I'm kind of metaphorically, but not exactly, picturing this wall again. If all the need is on one side of the wall and all the money, or at least this money, is on the other side of the wall, and if foundations can count that towards their 5% payout, no one's actually benefited yet when the needs are so great. So I get that. So everybody listening, if you don't know about HalfMyDAF, please check it out online. I'll tell you that my husband and I, we started a donor advised fund during COVID. I think it was a similar, like, we had more time to talk because we were around each other more, right, in the house. And we had not ever given through a DAF before. We set one up, and pretty soon thereafter, I heard about HalfMyDAF, and that excited me. And I'll tell you folks, the matching that Jen just talked about, one of the gifts I made to one of my favorite nonprofit organizations was actually matched, which is a random drawing. So, and
so
I
awesome.
had made the gift initially because another donor to that organization had announced a match. So that thing has been matched. I guess that's the third. There was the gift and there was my match. So it's the third or second time that money has been activated. So that was super exciting. And I have found, Jen, that two things have happened for me personally with using the DAF versus my just kind of, I'm a pretty impulsive philanthropist. I mean, everyone out there who's got, call me around dinner time. I'm definitely going to pick up and answer your call. I remember when I was a kid, that was my mom. I got that from my mom for sure. We were just, I wouldn't say we were suckers for any pitch, but we have a very empathetic heart. And we, whether it was, $25 or $250 was very, very easy to get, that money from us because we care and we're trying to make a difference. And I've noticed with having the DAF, it slowed me down. I have to use the mechanism, or I choose to use the mechanism of the DAF. So I have to go online and I have to, ask for them to move the money where it needs to go. And like, you can't give as easily at an event, for example. You can't just like write a check sitting, if you're at a gala and you want to, actually probably could, that pause is probably good for me. I'm probably appreciating that. And then I'm also finding that I'm ending up giving more, not less, because of the pause. I'm making a series of more kind of concentrated decisions. And I like that. And then now with HalfMyDAF, I'm accelerating that and motivated to get, because we've signed the pledge, to get half of it out by September.
It's interesting that you talk about that pause or kind of having to go to the computer. And this is one thing we tell nonprofits is that if it's easy for you to do, you do it quickly, right? You answer the phone. Oh, it's easy. I'll give $25. Yeah. And we want to help nonprofits make it easy for people to give from their DAFs. Yeah. So, often we'll get you might get an email that has a request or a donate button, and you get the opportunity to write a check or send a credit card, put a credit card number in. All nonprofits need to put a DAF widget up there to make it super easy for DAF holders to give through their DAF. Because I know myself, when I see something and, it asks for like 50, 500, 1,000, I might just click that button. But if I could give from my DAF, I might give more. And so the easier you make it for your donors to give from their DAF, the more you're going to get. And Great. So it's making sure you identify, that you can give from a DAF and make it easy for them to do that. Just be aware of that, because there is a lot of money sitting there. And then you don't have to pay the credit card fee or deal with checks.
Love it. So folks, again, on the website, on HalfMyDAF.com, I know you can hit donor or nonprofit. There's information and streams of resources for kind of whichever party is coming in to get more information about it. Another thing for the nonprofits who are listening, and the development people and the CEOs, et cetera, reaching out to your donor base with a DAF message. By the way, like you do with employee matching, right? Lots of times nonprofits will reach out and say, does your employer match? This would be a similar thing. Do you have a DAF? And did you know you can give to us through your DAF? That money that you've given once now can be activated and given actually to a cause you care about. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my laptop because I wanted to show something else on the screen here, because guess what we're doing, folks? I have to sign in. Pardon me. We're talking about money, right? So can we see?
Oh, that's great.
This is the cover of Jen's book, which is on its way to me, but I wanted to pull this up. First of all, I got to ask you about the birds. But you folks, the name of the book is We Need to Talk, a memoir about wealth. And I'll even say, even in this conversation, me saying I have a DAF, I was feeling like, am I a little fancy now saying that? And I got a little uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So here we are. So please tell us about your journey in becoming wealthy and talking about wealth and now speaking to other wealthy people. And I'm glad I could share that. I felt like a little like, I just told everybody I had a DAF. So I'd love to talk about that.
It is uncomfortable, but I'm glad you're saying it, because there's a lot of emotion that comes up, which is surprising. In fact, when David and I came up with the idea of HalfMyDAF and we realized we were going to say we're putting up $1 million, that feels vulnerable. It feels uncomfortable, but I worked through that luckily and can say that now. But, I got really lucky. When I was 25, I joined Microsoft. Mm-hmm. I met David and I got stock. It was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. David's stock was worth millions. And then he joined a small startup that was selling books on the internet called Amazon.com. And suddenly we were in our early 30s and We really had more money than we could wrap our heads around, which was, of course, amazing, but also really surprisingly complicated and emotionally complex. I felt so many different things. Like I was kind of embarrassed, and I was fearful. I was fearful of judgment. I was fearful of rejection. I had a bunch of questions. Were we going to spoil our kids? Should I give money to my brother? Should I give to my parents? How much? Were people looking at me differently? But I didn't talk about any of it. I felt like this is something we don't talk about.
Yeah.
And so I looked around for books. There were no books about, what it's like. And so I spent many, many years thinking about how money impacts us and our identity, how it impacts our relationships. And I told my story because I think we all learn from each other's stories. Yeah. So it's really my story of kind of grappling with and thinking about money. Mm-hmm. And since then, I have been out talking about it, and I've done a lot of speaking events and talking about it to help validate the emotions and acknowledge the complexity, and also to help other individuals and families get more comfortable talking, because income inequality happens within families too. Mm-hmm. And families aren't talking to each other, extended families, generational families. And until we can talk about something and really put it in its place as a tool, we're not going to be able to use it in a way that's really joyful, meaningful, but also with real purpose. Yeah. So it's really to try to help people move out of any sense of shame or guilt or I want to keep this hidden, and into like a real place of power and purpose.
Yeah.
And joy, playfulness, right?
Playfulness. Well, and I heard once, I think it was a TED Talk, Dan Peralta did a TED Talk about generally speaking, about general operating support and why that's so important for nonprofits. And they shouldn't be like embarrassed to talk about what it costs to run their organization. And his theory, his historical context for some of that discussion around the charitable sector was that it started not just with the Puritans, but the Calvinists, who were a subsection of the Puritans, if I got this right, early kind of American colonizers to our land, or not our land, the land we occupied.
Took over. Yes.
Yeah. And that they had and this is, pardon me, and scholars, please reach out with any details I've got wrong here. But I think what I picked up from his talk was that they themselves, in their religion, there was kind of shame around wealth, but they were quite good business people. So they had a lot of money. And so they came up with charity and donations to kind of assuage that guilt. And so if any of that is true, but it even just sounds like it could be true on some kind of human nature level, if that's kind of some of the ingredients that we have baked this sector around, no wonder we have this power dynamic that is off. No wonder we have this supplicant dynamic. No wonder we have a scarcity mentality, all of that. And here all you are, Playful Podcast audience, solving the biggest problems in the world with no guaranteed revenue stream other than like the largesse of others, which is pretty tricky. And so I think, Jen, thank you for talking about wealth, because I think if we can talk about what it is, and how it makes any of us feel to have it or need it, it's likely the money's going to move a little bit more fluidly and hopefully in greater quantities where it's needed.
Yeah. You mentioned power imbalance. And when you think of nonprofits and donors, and I'm hoping this is changing, but when we first started HalfMyDAF, several nonprofits said, well, can we really ask donors if they have a donor advised fund? Oh. Can we really ask them to move? Yes. I mean, yes. You don't need to tiptoe around your donors. They are just people. Yeah. And that's easy to say, right? Because you do need funding, but I like the way that I hope philanthropy is moving, where it is much more a partnership, trust-based. I mean, honestly, donors should be begging you to be part of their organization, begging you to take their money. This needs to be flipped on its head.
To give time or money to a cause you care about. And you nonprofits are making that possible.
Exactly. You're doing all the work and dedicating your lives to solving some of our world's toughest problems. And yeah, we should be just honored to be helping to support on that work. Right.
I love it. Okay. We better have some ice cream because
good.
clearly we have a lot to talk about. And let's do the last bit of talking with ice cream. So do you have to go get yours?
I do have to go
Okay,
get it.
great. Perfect. So Jen's going to get her ice cream, and I'm going to tell you about, folks, our ice cream sponsor for this episode is Salt and Straw, which is based in Portland, Oregon, was started by Kim and Tyler Malick. And I got to talk to Tyler on the phone about how it came to be that they went from a single ice cream cart to a ice cream company that is now in Oregon, Washington, California, and Florida. It turns out Jen has a Salt and Straw scoop shop, a retail location just down the street from her house. And I've got one, it's about 10 miles away, but I go there a lot. In fact, I told Tyler when I talked to him on the phone that the only time I've ever in my life said the words, "I think I had too much ice cream," was in one of his shops. So folks, if you're in any of those states and coming to a
well used. And I, again, get back to that idea that if you are giving to someone who's dedicating their life to solving a problem, that is, don't be fearful.
Yeah.
You are already like winning there, and that you can't really go wrong here. So again, just start and find something, and start with something that really resonates with you. Look inside yourself of what you care about most, and go with that. Trust yourself, trust your heart, and find an organization that you can kind of partner with.
Love it. And, in fact, I think HalfMyDAF, even if you don't have a donor advised fund, if you go on HalfMyDAF.com, you'll see some of the nonprofit organizations that people with DAFs have been donating to. So you can scroll through, and by name alone, you'll probably see some of the issue areas that you care about. And in a sense, there's a, I'm not calling it an endorsement, but there's people interested in that. You all are highlighting that. And it's a great place if you're kind of shopping around, where you can see a really great list of, I was on there yesterday, the great list of nonprofits that have benefited from the movement so far.
Oh, Christine, I love that you mentioned that. I think that is so true. It's like I'm discovering nonprofits all the time through HalfMyDAF, and it's like, oh, wow, that seems so cool. I mean, there's so many amazing organizations out there doing incredible work, and it's fun to see the different places that people are supporting. I agree.
All right. So I think the call to action has emerged here a couple times during the call, but if you wanted to inspire, or you have inspired, if you want to call some of our audience to some action, what would it be?
Well, we just gave away a chunk of money in matches, but there's still $700,000 that we're giving away at the end of September in matching grants. So any gift that was given through HalfMyDAF that didn't get matched is eligible for a match during that time, but any new grant is also eligible. So if you are thinking, oh, I want to get my money moving, I want a potential match, go to HalfMyDAF, and all you need to do is commit to spending it down. We trust you. We're trust-based. Can make that commitment, and then send us our DAF receipts, and we will put all the nonprofits you support up on our website. And then in the end of September, and we randomly do this, we put all the nonprofits in a spreadsheet and just randomly go down the list and start matching. And Great. Talk about playful. It is so exciting, and people are really excited to see whether or not their donations are matched, and it creates a lot of excitement.
Wonderful. Well, and also your book, for those who want to talk more about, want to read about wealth and talk about wealth, Jen's book, We Need to Talk, is a great personal story of doing that, which may inspire conversations that you all want to have with each other, with your family, and with your donors if you're a nonprofit organization.
Thanks for that too.
Jen.
Thank you so much. Very fun.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye. Oh, hey, everybody. We just finished up our conversation with Jen Risher, and today's double scoop. It is hard to choose, but I'm going to pick these two things that have stuck with me from that conversation that I think are also very actionable. Number one is sort of a mindset shift or suggestion for nonprofit leaders, which is to remember that your donors are lucky and privileged to be able to contribute to your organization. In fact, Jen's words were, donors should be lining up to support you, right? So it's not, we're not lining up with our hands out when we have charitable work that we're seeking support for, but vice versa. Think about that you have the opportunity that you're giving charitable and philanthropic people to participate in the change making that you're doing. So I love that sort of change in mindset and changing that dynamic, because that's actually the fact, right? And then the second thing had to do with it's called the ACE Act, ACE, which is the acronym for a bipartisan bill. It's Senate Bill 1981, and it stands for, ACE stands for Accelerating Charitable Efforts Act. And it is the current piece of legislation that would make some changes to the tax code, specifically regarding donor advised funds, as Jen was talking about with the HalfMyDAF effort. And it would require that money to move faster. There's no requirement now for it to move at all. It's restricted for charitable use, but it's not required to move. And that would put a time limit on that. I think it's 10 years. And the other thing is that it would change the current allowability of a private foundation to put money in a DAF and have that count towards their 5% payout which is kind of just moving money around and isn't necessarily always bad. But again, it's creating another pause or moment or block between the money actually getting into the hands of the people that are using it for the benefit of those they serve. So those two things I think are really enticing and full of flavor for the Double Scoop this week. Thanks a lot. Glad you joined us.
Thank you for listening to the Playful Podcast with Christine Mitchie. If you want to stay playful as you tackle the world's problems and get all the scoop on today's tastiest ice cream, click to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can learn more about Christine on LinkedIn and her work with changemakers worldwide at impactfulinc.com. That's impactful with 2 L's, INC.com.